Dear students, today we are going to learn about very interesting topic of unit number 1, and I hope that you are keeping good in this pandemic. Please stay at home and stay safe. So today our topic is development of various materials of construction and methods of construction. Yes, in civil engineering there are different materials which we deal in day-to-day life, and we have different types of construction methods which we use while designing or constructing or execution of any type of structure. So these have been developed in years together from Stone Age to the 21st century. So let us see few of them, and the rest I will give you in the assignment, so you have to submit it as and when I will tell you in your Google Classroom. Okay. So first is the Neolithic construction in the Stone Age side. So this is what we are going to study here now. The Neolithic, also known as the New Stone Age, was a time period roughly from 9000 BC to 5000 BC, named because it was the last period of the age before working began. The tools available were made from natural materials including bone, hide, stone, wood, grasses, animal fibers, and the use of water. These tools were used by people to cut, such as with the hand axe, chopper, adze, and silt. Also the scrap, chop, such as with a fake tool, pound, pierce, roll, pull, and lever. Now we know all of these animal made materials which the man used in the Stone Age, and then they were developed years together, and we are getting most very important materials for the construction. So building materials included bones such as mammoth ribs, hide, stone, metal, bark, bamboo, clay, lime plaster, and more. Let us see one figure of mammoth ribs. This is the mammoth, an animal, and its ribs were used for the construction. It was used as a stool and a construction material also. This is the hide, which is known as skin. This is the leather which we are using now also for the construction. The first were simple huts, tents, and shelters meant to suit the basic needs of the protection. Of course, we used first the huts, tents for the livelihood, and the man was traveling from one place to another, so there was a temporary, you can say, shade used for it. The absence of metal tools placed limitations on the materials that could be worked, but it was still possible to build quite elaborate stone structures with ingenuity using dry stone walling techniques such as Sakra Brae in Scotland, Europe's most complete Neolithic village. The first mud bricks formed with the hands rather than wooden molds belong to the Neolithic period and were found in Jericho. Let us see how these bricks are seen. So if you can see from this photograph, these are the dry stones which were used for walling purpose, for making walls using some additions, and they are again still there with the help of connectivity. This is the Sakra Brae. Small villages were there like this, which were made for living, and this is the mud brick which was made to built the house. One of the largest structures of this period was the Neolithic longhouse. So these are the long houses which were built in the Neolithic age, in that many families used to live together, and it just formed one colonial area where people used to live together, cook together, do everything together. Okay. Ancient Mesopotamia, the earliest large scale buildings for which evidence survives have been found in ancient Mesopotamia. Major technical achievement is evidenced by the construction of great cities such as Uruk and Ur. The Ziggurat of Ur is an outstanding building of the period, despite major construction work. Another fine example is the Ziggurat at Chogha Zanbil in modern Iran. Cities created demands for new technologies such as drains for animal and human sewage and paved structures. Archaeological evidence has shown the existence of pitched brick walls such as the Tel al-Rama in what is known now in Iraq. See student, this is Uruk, and you can see how the construction was done here. And this is Ur. The mud bricks were used to make, and again the fired bricks were developed in this era to build the cities. Materials. The chief building material was the mud brick, formed in a wooden mold similar to those used to make adobe bricks. Bricks varied widely in size and format, from small bricks that could be lifted in one hand to ones as big as large paving slabs. Rectangular and square bricks were both common. So brick was the main material which was used. And here if you can see, fired bricks and stone were used for pavement. So whatever mud bricks we are using, you can see the red bricks, they are made up of mud bricks. They are wired and then they are used in pavements, and now we are using in building construction. So these are the mud bricks. These are the hole made for lifting the bricks, and then the mortar is filled inside for better connectivity. The Ziggurat of Ur is an outstanding building of the period despite major reconstruction work. So you can see this is what is the Ziggurat of Ur, made up of mud bricks. Isn't it amazing? It looks so huge. And that time when there were not much material was there, no technology was there, only creativity of man was there, and they have built such a huge building. Now second, if you can see Joga Zinbil in modern Iran, Ziggurat. So this is how it was built in 9000 BC. The later Mesopotamian civilizations, particularly Babylon and Thensusa, developed glazed brickwork to a very high degree, decorating the interiors and exteriors of their buildings with glazed brick reliefs, examples of which survive in the Tehran Archaeological Museum, the Louvre Museum in Paris, and the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. See, this is the city of Babylon, which was built with respect to the Mesopotamia, and it looks very huge, and how the canals were formed and how they have taken care of drainage and everything at that time. This is Susa, which was built ancient Egypt. Materials. Adobe sun-baked mud brick construction was used for ancillary buildings and normal houses in ancient times and is still commonly used in rural Egypt. The hot, dry climate was ideal for mud brick, which tends to wash away in the rain. The Ramesseum in Thebes, Egypt, Luxor provides one of the finest examples of mud brick construction. Extensive storehouses with mud brick walls also survive, all construction with sloping courses to avoid the need for formwork. The grandest buildings were constructed in stone, often from massive masonry blocks. The techniques used to move massive blocks used in pyramids and temples have been subject to extensive debate. This was the mud which was available in the Egypt. This is the adobe type of mud which was used to build the walls. Adobe is a building material made from earth or organic materials. Adobe is Spanish for mud brick. But in some English-speaking regions of Spanish heritage, the term is used to refer to any kind of earthen construction. Most adobe buildings are similar in appearance to coke and rammed earth buildings. Adobe is among the earliest building materials and is used throughout the world. Ramesseum. You can see this photograph, memorial temple or mortuary temple of Pharaoh Ramesses II. It is located in the Theban necropolis in Upper Egypt on the west of the river Nile. What technology they have used? Main article is ancient Egyptian technology. The ancient Egyptians are credited with inventing the ramp, lever, lathe, oven, ship, paper, irrigation system, window, awning, door glass, a form of plaster of Paris, the bath, log, shadow, weaving, a standardized measurement system, geometry, silo, a method of drilling stone, saw, steam power, proportional scale drawings, enameling, winner, plywood, rope thrust, and more. See how much they have invented. So Egyptians were really having a very good technology which have given shape to all these things. There are no surviving Egyptian manuals, so there has been considerable speculation on how stones were lifted to great heights and obelisks erected. Most theories center on the use of ramps. Imhotep, who lived circa 2650 to 266 BC, is credited with being the first recorded architect and engineer. Ancient Greece. The ancient Greece, like the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, tended to build most of their common buildings out of mud brick, leaving no record behind them. However, many structures to survive, some of which are in a very good state of repair, although some have been partly reconstructed and re-erected in the modern era. The most dramatic is the Greek temples. See, these are the Greek temples and very big monuments. They were reconstructed, redeveloped at the time when it was destroyed. Building structures mostly used a simple beam and column system without walls or arches, which based strict limits on the spans that could be achieved. Greek mathematics was technically advanced, and we know for certain that they employed and understood the principles of police, which would have enabled them to build jibs and cranes to lift heavy stonework to the upper parts of the building. The ancient Greeks never developed the strong mortars, which became an important feature of Roman construction. You can see the figure pulley they have developed. Roman Empire, in striking contrast to previous cultures, an enormous amount is known about Roman building construction. Materials, let us see what are the materials they have used. The great Roman development in building materials was the use of hydraulic lime mortar called Roman cement. This was developed with the Roman Empire, and now we are developing lot many cements, lime mortars, etc. Previous cultures had used lime mortars, but by adding volcanic ash called a pozzolana, the mortar would harden underwater. This provided them with a strong material for bulk walling. They used brick or stone to build the outer skins of the wall and then filled the cavity with massive amounts of concrete, effectively used the brickwork as permanent shuttering formwork. Later they used wooden shuttering for that was removed for the concrete to cure. They not only used it for walls but also to form arches, barrel walls, and domes which they built over huge spans. The Romans developed systems of hollow pots for making their domes and sophisticated heating and ventilation systems for their thermal baths. Romans also made use of glass in the construction with colored glass in mosaics and clear glass for windows. You can see first example is arch, second example barrel wall, third example you can see the dome which is known as cupola. The 17th century The 17th century saw the birth of modern science which would have profound effects on building construction in the centuries to come. The major breakthroughs were towards the end of the century when architects and engineers began to use experimental science to inform the form of their buildings. However, it was not until the 18th century that engineering theory developed sufficiently to allow sizes of members to be calculated. 17th century structures relied strongly on experience, rules of thumb, and use of scale models. Materials and tools. The major breakthrough in this period was the manufacture of glass, with the first cast plate glass being developed in France. Iron was increasingly employed in structures. Christopher Wren used iron hangers to suspend floor beams at Hampton Court Palace and iron rods to repair Salisbury Cathedral and strengthen the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. Most buildings had stone ashlar surfaces covering rubble cores held together with lime mortar. Experiments were made mixing lime with other materials to provide a hydraulic mortar, but there was still no equivalent of the Roman concrete. In England, France, and the Dutch Republic, cut and gauged brickwork was used to provide detailed and ornate facades. The triangulated roof truss was introduced to England and used by Inigo Jones and Christopher Wren. Many tools have been made obsolete by modern technology, but the line, gauge, plumb line, the carpenter's square, the spirit level, and the drafting compass are still in the regular use. You can see the Hampton Court Palace. This was built in 17th century by using certain tools and materials discussed earlier. Isn't it good? This is St. Paul's Cathedral in the 17th century. You can see the dome used, which is known as cupola. 18th century. The 18th century saw the development of many of the ideas that had been born in the late 17th century. The architects and engineers became increasingly professionalized. Experimental science and mathematical methods became increasingly sophisticated and employed in the buildings. At the same time, the birth of the Industrial Revolution saw an increase in the size of the cities and increase in the pace and quality of construction. See the picture which was built in the 18th century. Materials. The major breakthroughs in this period were in the use of iron, both cast and wrought. Iron columns had been used in range designed for the House of Commons and were used in several early 18th century churches in London, but these supported only galleries. In the second half of the 18th century, the decreasing cost of iron's production allowed the construction of major pieces of iron engineering. Steel was used in the manufacture of tools but could not be made in sufficient quantities to be used for buildings. Brick production increased markedly during this period. Many buildings throughout Europe were built of brick, but they were often coated in lime render, sometimes patterned to look like stone. Brick production itself changed little. Bricks were molded by hand and fired in kilns, no different to those used for centuries before. Terracotta in the form of cored stone was used as an artificial stone in UK. This is the Iron Beach at Coalbrookdale, 1779. This is the cored stone. The 19th century Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was manifested in new kinds of transportation installations, such as railways, canals, and macadam roads. Those required for amounts of investment. New construction devices included steam engines, machine tools, explosives, and optical surveying. The steam engine combined with two other technologies which blossomed in the 19th century. The circular saw and machine cut nails lead to the use of balloon framing and the decline of traditional timber framing. As steel was mass produced from the mid 19th century, it was used in form of I-beams and reinforced concrete. Glass panes also went into mass production and changed from luxury to every man's property. Plumbing appeared and gave common access to drinking water and sewage collection. Building codes have been applied since the 19th century with special respect to fire safety. This was the transportation used. You can see in picture number 1. This is the macadam used for the building of roads. These were some of the examples of the buildings built in the 19th century. The 20th century. With the second industrial revolution in the early 20th century, elevators and cranes made high-rise buildings and skyscrapers possible, while heavy equipment and power tools decreased the workforce needed. Other new technologies were prefabrications and computer-aided design. Trade unions were formed to protect construction workers' interest and occupational safety and health. Personal protective equipment such as hard hats and earmuffs also came into use and have become mandatory at most sites. From the 20th century, governmental construction projects were used as a part of macroeconomic stimulation policies, especially during the Great Depression. See, New Deal is one of the construction of Great Depression. For economy of scale, whole suburbs, towns and cities including infrastructure are often planned and constructed within the same project called mega project if the cost exceeds US $1 million, such as Brasilia in Brazil and the Million Program in Sweden. In the end of 20th century, ecology, energy conservation, and sustainable development have become more important issues of the construction. See the railway during the second industrial revolution. This is the high-rise buildings. So dear students, thank you for today. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you so much.